She was called the Deputy Princess, not because she was part of Monaco's royal family, but because her exceptional wealth and family heritage made her a permanent and inescapable fixture in Monaco's jet set. This is the story of how Hélène Pastor, Monaco's richest woman, will be executed in broad daylight for reasons of almost insulting banality. In the courts, lawyers will claim that Hélène died at the hands of a man with an existential need for recognition. So, my friends, make yourself comfortable, brew your favorite hot drink, and get ready for an episode of Espresso Crime I particularly enjoyed researching. This week, Espresso Crime takes you to Monaco, the most densely populated sovereign state in the world, whose 0.8 square miles makes it also the smallest after Vatican City. Monaco is also known as the Pearl of the Mediterranean Sea. And why not? Its name is associated with excess, luxury, unrivaled elitism, and a geographical footprint that boasts the greatest number of billionaires per square meter. It is one such billionaire that one Wednesday in spring, death will visit in the guise of what can only be described as an execution. The victim's name is Hélène Pastor. If that name means nothing to you, to the citizens of Monaco, called Monégasque, that name is synonymous with business royalty, a billionaire heiress who owns a 1/3 of their land. We are the 6th of May, 2014. It's about 5 p.m. Hélène Pastor leaves her residential home with her trusted cook and chauffeur, Mohammed Dawlish. Theirs is a short journey, a 30 minutes drive to L'Arche Hospital in Nice, a location she has been going to every day without a fault for the past 5 months. Her 47-year-old son, Gildo, is a patient there, receiving treatment following a heart attack. Hélène Pastor, she spends a couple of hours by his bedside every day. Little do they know that in the outdoor parking of the clinic, a man armed with a sawn-off shotgun and his lookout are waiting for them. Hélène and Mohammed get into the spacious Lancia Voyager people carrier, and, as they begin to drive out of the parking, one of the assailants jumps out a parapet, runs to the front seat passenger side window, and bang, without saying a word, shoots them both, point blank. First Hélène, then Mohammed. The shooter runs away. Both victims are critically injured, but not dead. They have been shot in the face, the neck, and abdomen. Gildo hears some commotion outside and is promptly advised that his mother and her chauffeur have been shot and are in a critical condition. For security reasons, he is moved to another hospital. The victims are taken to Saint Roch Hospital in Nice. Hélène Pastor is admitted under a different name. She is still alive, and if this was a calculated attack, best not give the murderer an opportunity to finish the job. Unfortunately, on the 11th of May, Mohammed succumbs from his injuries, and though Hélène Pastor will eventually wake up from her coma 5 days later, she too passes away on the 21st of May, 2014. She was 77 years old. Hélène's death sends shockwaves across the Monaco's high society and beyond. The Prince's Palace of Monaco releases a statement, and the funeral is attended by Prince of Monaco Albert II. The Home Secretary vows to find the culprits. The Monaco and the French police join forces, and an investigation promptly begins. Their first observation is that the murder weapon must have been a shotgun, and not any type of shotgun, a buckshot shotgun. Basically, the type that fires pellets and is used to hunt animals so as to minimize flesh destruction. What bore, at first glance, the hallmark of a professional killing now resembles a common robbery orchestrated by amateurs. But the theory is quickly discounted, at least the robbery motive. That's because the assailant neglected to take Hélène's handbag, which contained 1,800 euros. In fact, they made no attempt to open the car's doors. The scene of the crime suggests Hélène or Mohammed were in fact specifically targeted for execution, mafia-style. But why them? The police first focused their investigation on Egyptian-born, 64-year-old Mohammed Dawlish. Mohammed had been in the employ of Hélène for about 15 years, first as her personal butler and chef, and more recently as a chauffeur. His routine involved attending Hélène's residence in the morning, making her breakfast, and chauffeuring her throughout the day. Witnesses suggest that the relationship was a strong one. Hélène trusted Mohammed implicitly, to the point of treating him as her confidant. In addition, scrutiny into Mohammed's life yields nothing nefarious. Nothing to suggest that he mixed with the wrong crowd, a crowd that might have tried to settle scores with him, for instance. Quite the contrary. By all accounts, he was a hard-working, loyal, and trustworthy family man. The theory that Dawlish was the prime target is quickly eliminated. If anything, and tragically, it seems his role in this sordid affair will be that of a victim of circumstances. So, the police, they turn their attention to Hélène Pastor. Who would want to gun down such a notable moneygask in broad daylight? Money feeds envy, and envy feeds suffering. And since Hélène Pastor was the richest woman in Monaco, perhaps that question appears not too difficult to answer. Born in 1937, Hélène Pastor was one of 3 children. Her father was Gildo Pastor, an Italian-born developer who, at the end of the Second World War, set out to build a property empire by acquiring oceanfront land at low prices and turning them into building apartment blocks. A man who clearly had nothing to learn from the board game Monopoly, Gildo was known to have owed his success to 2 golden principles: never have any debt and never sell. Hélène was therefore born into privilege, and she knew it. Mind you, that did not stop her from becoming an astute businesswoman and significantly improving her family's fortune. At the time of her death, her net worth was estimated at 20 billion euros. Hélène married twice. She had 1 daughter with her first husband, Sylvia Pastor, aged 53. Sylvia worked alongside her mother and lives with partner of 25 years Polish-born businessman, philanthropist Wojciech Janowski, with whom they have a daughter. Hélène Pastor then married Claude Palanca, a dentist. They had a son, Gildo Palanca Pastor, whom we mentioned earlier. He is the owner of the electric car consumer brand Venturi, a company he founded with the actor Leonardo DiCaprio. For all her ostentatious upbringing, Hélène Pastor was described by those who knew her a model of wisdom and discretion, a woman who did not crave recognition, avoided limelight, and found happiness in managing her portfolio and spending time with Belle, her dog. It is also true the last few years had been challenging for Hélène. In 2014, her son Gildo suffered a stroke which had left him partially paralyzed and unable to speak. Hélène's brother, Michel, had died following a long illness, and, as we heard earlier, her only daughter was diagnosed with breast cancer a few years ago. "Sometimes, I wonder if there is a God," she once told a friend. Be that as it may, the police could not ignore the possibility that Hélène Pastor's formidable fortune could have attracted business enemies. In fact, news of the shooting sparks rumors that Hélène might have been the victim of some notorious Italian crime syndicates like the 'Ndrangheta or the Camorra. Both had strong interest in the French Riviera's property sector. Others point to the Russian mafia. These leads prove fruitless. The police won't have to muse for long. The CCTV footage are in, and let's just say, the plot unravels quite quickly, and in one direction. The footage showed 2 men being dropped off by taxi in the vicinity of the hospital shortly before the shooting. You heard right. Dropped by taxi. The police can't believe their luck. Amateurish is an understatement. What sort of hitmen arrive at the scene of their killing by cab? This was a rhetorical question, so no, Tom Cruise's character in the movie Collateral is the wrong answer. To be fair, the duo will later admit that taking a taxi was the only option left after their attempt to buy a moped failed because they didn't have proper ID. Anyway, the police approached taxi operators in and around Nice and obtained the cell phone numbers of the individuals that booked the journey from their hotel to the hospital. They learned that these cell phones were bought in Marseille on the very day of the killings. In fact, CCTV footage and their cell phone will enable an almost frame-by-frame itinerary of their movements. We will find out that by 15:30 on the day of their killing, they were in a hotel room where one of them bizarrely decided to take a shower. At 18:18, the first accomplice, the lookout, is seen leaving the hotel en route to the hospital. Then, at 18:30, the shooter takes his own taxi. By 1900 hours, both are finally in place to set their ambush. Remains now for the police to put some names on this not-too-bright commando. The French police search the hotel room and find DNA on the shower gel that one of them left behind. The actual gunman's no less. Unbelievably, their check against their database reveals a match. His name is Samin Saeed Ahmed, a 24-year-old drug trafficker that lives in the poor part of Marseille, a city in France about 130 miles from Monaco. The second accomplice is also quickly identified because he has the bright idea to continue using the cell phone used to organize the shooting. Both men are put on wiretap and soon found to be commandeered by Abdelkader Belkatir, whose sister, police discover, is the long-term girlfriend of a Laurent Dauriac. That name becomes important because a background check reveals that this Dauriac is a fitness instructor for the rich and famous of Monaco. Scrutiny of his telephony, in turn, shows that Dauriac had made frequent phone calls before and after the murder to a Monte Carlo-based nanotechnology firm called Firmus, whose chairman is none other than Wojciech Janowski, Sylvia Pastor's partner. Close inspection of Dauriac's client list yields an even more interesting revelation. Sylvia Pastor and Janowski, her partner, are clients of his. So who is this Mr. Janowski? Well, as we saw earlier, he is the partner for the past 26 years of Sylvia Pastor, daughter of Hélène Pastor. Here, I stress partner, not husband, and you will see how this fact will become very important as this story unravels. But his resume does not stop there. Janowski is also the co-founder of Charity for Autism, for which he received the National Order of Merit for his philanthropy from French President Nicolas Sarkozy in 2010. He is a Polish honorary consul, chair of the Polish Chamber of Commerce in Monaco, and the president of Canadian oil company Hudson Oil Corporation. In many ways, Janowski is the epitome of a self-made man. Born 1949 in Warsaw in communist, Stalinist Poland. He arrives in London in his 20s with a few £100s in pocket, graduates from Cambridge in economics, takes up a job at a casino, and gradually carves himself a career in the world of high-end gambling establishments. Before the age of 40, he was the director of the company that manages Monaco's best casinos. Hats off to him. He's made it. In 1988, Janowski meets Sylvia Pastor, the daughter of Monaco's richest woman. They never marry, but they have a child together. For all his charms and accomplishments, Janowski never earns the affection of his mother-in-law, Hélène Pastor. She mistrusts him. She thinks her daughter could do better. So much so that she has him surveilled and investigated during a staggering 23 years. Besides, the police investigation uncovers troubling facts about this polyglot philanthropist businessman. All is not what he seems. It avers that his oil company is not doing too great. Janowski is very much a man in desperate need of money. The investors want their loan back. He's already lost 2 lawsuits over this in Poland. Bank records reveal he's €2 million overdrawn. And there is more. As one unpeels the layers of his complex personality, one uncovers layers upon layers of falsehood, deceit and manipulation, always revolving around his desire to belong to the Monaco's elite. For a start, his credentials that he graduated from Cambridge appears to be as bogus as career in high-end casinos. Then, there are his spending habits that he hides from his wife. Every month, his mother-in-law transfers €500,000 into Sylvia's bank account, money that Janowski periodically siphons, totaling $8.4 million in the 18 months, presumably to salvage his failing oil company. We don't know for sure, but all the signs are there. Janowski is the accomplished swindler. It is against this background that, barely a month after her death, a motive for the murder of Pastor emerges. The investigation is moving fast, almost too fast. On 23rd of June 2014, the police decide to arrest all 28 the suspects and their partners all at once. The element of surprise has one obvious goal: prevent collusion and the crafting of consistent narratives to lubricate defense lawyers' filibusters. They have 4 days to squeeze the truth out of them. Janowski, well, he denies all involvement. "How dare you? These murders have nothing to do with me," he says. What he doesn't know is that next door, Pascal Dauriac is singing like Taylor Swift. He informs the police that he was paid to get rid of Hélène Pastor. His confession is fluid, coherent, uninterrupted. In fact, it will never alter. It all began in 2012 when, during a massage session, Janowski asked him to find a weapon so that he may get rid of his mother-in-law, a woman he describes as a monster. Why? Because she bullies his partner, Sylvia, who has cancer. Janowski makes Dauriac his confidant. For a period of 18 months, Janowski grooms Dauriac, by chronicling how Pastor's cruelty towards Sylvia is making him insane. It must be stopped. She must be stopped. Janowski showers him with watches, opera tickets, luxurious holidays. Oh, and let's not forget, endless flattery like, "You're the son I never had." Duriak is overwhelmed by the attention he gets from a man of such accomplishments. A diplomat, a businessman, a man that has succeeded in everything he did. Maybe he too can belong to that world. Janowski's call for help to find a weapon morphs over time into a cry for help for a contract killing. Doriak can be his benefactor's savior. Doriak receives 140,000 euros in cash to do the deed. With these funds, he recruits Abdel, his brother-in-law, who in turn enlists the help of the Look. Out who, in turn, recruits Ahmed. He will be the gunman. The contract-killing daisy chain is complete. Janowski's bank account shows cash withdrawal totaling 200,000 euros over a period of 3 months before the killing. The chess pieces are in place. Time to speak to Janowski. Anything else you want to tell us? Janowski, still in character, feigns outrage, but the telephone and money trail to Doriak are impossible to explain without a side dish of admission. Janowski relents. Yes, he did make these payments to Doriak, but that's because he was blackmailed by a man who threatened to harm his family. That explanation does not impress the police. After 3 days and much acrobatics, Janowski, he confesses. He did it, but he did it to save his ailing wife from the bullying of his tyrannical mother-in-law. He is quick to mention that he took no part in the planning of her murder, but left these operational details at the hands of Doriak. Like I do when doing business. Same principle, he says chillingly. Janowski later repeats that confession to Sylvia in the corridors of the nice police station. Poor Sylvia is devastated. She accepts that her mother was not always kind, but she was good to them, enabling them both to live a life that she describes herself as magnificent. What could have driven her partner and the father of her children to do the unthinkable? She asks him, "Did you think of the children?" "No," he responds. She goes into a rage, then faints. Janowski, Dariak, Hamadi, and Ahmed are all charged with first-degree murder. Others will be charged with lesser crimes like accessories after the facts. The news of the arrest, and especially Janowski, rocks France and Monaco. The story captures the public's imagination. An assassination ordained by a Monaco millionaire and orchestrated by hoodlums from the suburbs of Marseille. You couldn't script this. But any good story needs a twist, and this one is no exception. Unbelievably, by the time the accused get to their first bail hearing a week later, Janowski goes back on his confession. "I am innocent," he claims. "These confessions were extracted out of me through force and intimidation. It's the police. They threatened me and treated me worse than one would in concentration camps. Also, French is not his native language, and important nuances must have escaped him under the stress of the 3-day-long police interrogation." The trial begins on the 17th of September 2018. A good 4 years have passed. Janowski has had plenty of time to polish up his defense. He's even managed to change his lead counsel and bag himself the illustrious Éric Dupond-Moretti, the French-Italian lawyer who later became France's justice minister. Moretti is not your regular kind of defense lawyer. His opponents dub him the acquittator, owing to his formidable ability to get his clients off, however unsavory they may be, or bad the facts against them look. Moretti goes on the offensive. He first attacks the motive. The idea that Janowski would order the killing of a woman who funds his lifestyle makes no sense. You just don't kill the golden goose. Then, there is the Gestapo-style interrogation, where the defense alleges the police did everything to extract a confession short of, and I quote, "pulling out the nails out of his fingers." Prosecution tells the jury not to buy these comic books explanations. Make no mistake, money was very much at the heart of his decision to eliminate his mother-in-law. The fact that Hélène Pastor was not very pleasant to his partner would have just been a bonus. They remind the jury that Janowski is not married to Sylvia. She has cancer, and in the event of her passing, he would be left penniless. The luxury villa, the yacht, the private club membership, all that would stop in a flash. For a man as arrogant and narcissistic as Janowski, this is a fate he could never accept. To the prosecution, the motive is a slam dunk. All the while outside court, the media portrayed Janowski as a man whose life ambition was to become the adopted son of Monaco's elite and now feels disavowed and totally betrayed. In court, Janowski does not make the job for his defense any easier. He incessantly goes off topic and tries to impress the jury about his wealth, his yacht, his properties abroad, his extravagant lifestyle. His narrative is fluid, self-assured, almost stubborn. It contradicts the images of man stricken by the accusation of a crime he didn't commit and capable of being bullied into a confession by a police keen to get the scalp of a millionaire. As to the claims of coerced confessions, the judge decides to settle the allegations once and for all by doing something completely unorthodox in the French judicial system. He orders that the recording of the interrogations be played in court. The defense protests, to no avail. The videos are played and show a very relaxed Janowski during his confession, patient, courteous, and respectful, and importantly, something that the jury could already surmise in court, conversing in perfect French. The allegations of police intimidation are shown for what they are, tissues of lies. The charade is over. Janowski's lawyer confesses on behalf of a tearful client. He did the deed. Initially, Janowski claims that love was his motive. My wife's mother mistreated her every day. From the day I met her, I had to put Sylvia back together. Her mother and her brother Gildo were vipers. They wanted to destroy her, he says. In later pleadings, Janowski's lawyers admit money was a motivation too. Money that drives you mad, in the words of Moretti. And what of poor Mr. Mohammed Dawlish? Why did he need to die? According to the prosecution, Dawlish's killing was nothing but a callous, unnecessary decoy, a red herring designed to throw off the police into thinking that he had been the prime target. Janowski denies that vehemently. The sentencing is brutal. Janowski, taxi-loving Hamadi, and Ahmed the shooter get life in prison for the murder of both Hélène Pastor and Mohammed Dawlish. The remorseful Dariak gets 30 years. Janowski takes the sentencing very badly. Rumours run that he feels deeply betrayed by Monaco that failed to protect one of its sons. He appeals and appeals again, even alleging his lawyers made a confession he never made. In June 2023, Janowski's last appeal fails. He will die in prison. When all the dust has settled and we look at the event of that fateful day, the murder of Hélène Pastor and Mohammed Dawlish can be reduced to a simple tale of unbridled greed and bungling violence. Unbridled greed, from a man who lived a life that most of us would envy. For surely, Sylvie Pastor would have ensured that the love of her life and father of one of her children would be okay in the event of her passing. Maybe he wanted more. Bungling violence, because for all his titles and sophistication, Janowski went about organizing his crime like an amateur. He cut corners by hiring low-beat crooks and left a trail of evidence that would embarrass O.J. Simpson. Maybe I am being uncharitable. Maybe Janowski really did what he did out of desperation to save his partner from her mother's claws. What do you think? Personally, I am not sure. His propensity to fabricate lies every time his duplicity was uncovered is difficult to overlook. It wasn't me. Okay, I did it because I was blackmailed. Actually, I did it to save Sylvie. On second thought, the police forced a confession out of me. Truth is, I didn't understand what I confessed to because my French isn't very good looking. Okay, I will let my lawyers confess for me. I did it. And finally, hold on, that's not true. The lawyer made a confession I never made. That's 7 excuses, 1 for every day of the week. I can't help but feel a deep pity for Mohammed and family. His death is sadly a footnote in this tale. He was killed for nothing. We must feel sympathy for Helen's children too, Gildo and Sylvie. Sylvie was betrayed by the father of her child and the love of her life, a man who used the money her mother gave her to fund her mother's own execution. How can you ever recover from that? As if the Pastor family had not endured enough tragedy, the murder of Hélène Pastor has left a rift between the 2 siblings, which, according to my research, has not been closed. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Espresso Crime. If you did, please consider liking and subscribing. This channel is still very young, and any support for it will be greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. Until the next episode, take care of yourself and of each other.